Welcome to Motbots. I'm Dustin, and this is the LED blinker circuit. Welcome to this video on the LED blinker circuit. This circuit is part of our circuit component super series on the website. This video is to show the assembly of that LED blinker circuit. I'm not going to go too much into how this circuit works. Some of that was gone over on the website on that third part of this 12-part series titled How Components Work Together in Real Circuits, Having Components Join Forces. I'll leave the link to everything I'm talking about here down in the description of this video, and I might also place some imagery in the video as well. So again, all I wanted to do for this video was to just show the assembly of the LED blinker circuit, and let's jump into that right now. So as you can see here, I have in front of me the components and items that we'll need to assemble this LED blinker circuit. I have here a basic 9-volt battery with a battery snap connector attached to it, ready to go with its negative and positive lead wires. I have a breadboard here. I have two 10 microfarad polarized capacitors or electrolytic capacitors. I have a couple of jumper wires here, one red one and one orange one. I have another couple of longer red jumper wires here. These are more of your typical solid core jumper wires. I'll have to bend these later to get them to bend the way I need them to, or bend them in submission. I have another couple of smaller blue jumper wires here, also the typical solid core wire. I also have a couple of resistors here. These are two 47,000 ohm resistors or 47K ohm resistors, and I have two other resistors here that are both the value of 470 ohms. Right here I have two NPN transistors. These happen to be PN2222A transistors, and I have my red and blue LEDs here, and these are the LEDs that we're going to try to get to blink for us for this LED blinker circuit. So if you were to look at the blog post for this particular circuit in our circuit component super series, that's the post How Components Work Together in Real Circuits, or part 3 of the series. It starts off with connecting the 9-volt battery to the breadboard, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and put the components onto the board itself, and then the last thing I'll do is connect the 9-volt battery to the breadboard. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and put the two transistors, the two NPN transistors, onto the breadboard, and I have the transistor face, or the flat face of the transistor, pointing directly towards me, and the legs of this particular NPN transistor going from left to right is emitter, base, and collector. So the emitter is on the left, the base is in the middle, and the collector is the right lead with the flat face facing towards me. So again, I'm going to place both of these transistors flat face facing towards me, and I'm going to put the three legs of this transistor on column B, or excuse me, column C, in the rows 4, 5, and 6. So I have the emitter in column C, row 4. I have the base lead at column C, row 5, and I have the collector lead on column C, row 6. And if I pick up my circuit here and show you a little closer. That's the flat face of this transistor. You can see it's a PN2222A. I have its emitter leg on column C, row 4, the base at column C, row 5, and the collector at column C, row 6. So next I'll put the second transistor, again having the flat face facing towards me, and I'm going to place the legs for this transistor on column C and at rows 14, 15, and 16. Next, what I want to do is I want to connect the emitters for both of the transistors to ground, and I'm going to have this rail here, this blue rail with the negative sign, be my negative or common ground rail, and I'm going to have this red power rail here with the plus sign be my positive power supply, or the positive side of my power supply for this rail here. So I'm going to reserve those two as my positive and negative rails. So I'm going to take one of my shorter blue jumper wires and place one jumper wire at column B into row 4. That's in line with the leg of this transistor's emitter leg going to ground. So just so you know, looking at the schematic that is provided on the website, this is my Q1 and Q2 transistors. And I'll take this other blue jumper wire, and just as I did for the first transistor, I'm going to place one side of the jumper wire in line with the emitter pin of, or the emitter lead of the second transistor, and the other end of that jumper wire to ground. So now I have both of the emitters for each of these transistors going directly to ground. Next, I'm going to take one of my 10 microfarad capacitors, making sure that I have it in proper orientation. This gray line here is referencing the negative lead of this capacitor, this polarized capacitor. That would be the cathode. So that gray line here means that this lead here is the negative and the other one is the positive. Okay, so I'm going to place it in row H. Sorry, I'm going to place it in column H at rows 5 and 6. And I'm going to take the second 10 microfarad capacitor and I'm going to place its leads into column H, rows 15 and 16. So just so you know, I have the cathode of this capacitor representing C1 from the schematic, its negative lead going in to column H, row 6, and capacitor C2 here as referenced from the schematic from the website. I'll also provide that schematic down in the description below. This capacitor C2, its negative lead is in column H, row 16. And I'll give a close-up view of what that looks like so far. So this is how the circuit setup is as of right now. So we'll continue on from there. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place the red LED onto the breadboard, and I'm going to take the longer lead of the LED. This longer lead here is going to be the anode or the positive lead of this LED, and I'm going to place it near the first capacitor, capacitor C1 as referenced from the schematic, and I'm going to place that anode into column G, row 4, and then I'm going to place the cathode of the LED on column G, row 5, and that cathode of the red LED will be in line with that positive lead of the capacitor. And now I'm going to take one of the 470 ohm resistors and I'm going to place one of its leads in line with the anode of the red LED and the other end of the resistor into my positive power rail here. And now I'm going to take the blue LED and I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the red LED. I'm going to place its longer lead, or the positive lead of the blue LED, into column G, row 14, and the negative lead or cathode of the blue LED is going to be at the point column G, row 15, which is in line with the positive leg or lead of this second capacitor, or C2 if you're referencing the schematic. Again, I'm going to take one of these 470 ohm resistors. I'm going to place one end of it in line with the anode of the blue LED, and the other end of the resistor, its leg is going to go into the positive power rail of the breadboard. So now, in order to complete the timing side of the circuit, I have my timing capacitors. Now I'm going to take my timing resistors, which is just a couple of 47k ohm resistors, or 47,000 ohm resistors. I'm going to take one of those 47k ohm resistors and I'm going to take one lead, or one end of that resistor, and place it in line with the negative or cathode lead of capacitor C1 as referenced on the schematic. So I have one lead of that 47k ohm resistor on column I, row 6, and I'm going to take this other 47k ohm resistor and place one end of it in line with the second capacitor, its cathode lead or negative lead, at column I, row 16, and the other end of that resistor is going to go into the positive rail for our power supply. So if I pick up and show you a little closer, this is how the circuit looks so far and where everything is going, so you can get a good look at it. So now I'm going to continue, and we're almost done here. I'm just going to first connect the negative lead of each capacitor to the base of its opposing transistor. I'm going to do that first because it's just going to be easier that way for me. So what I mean is, if I'm looking at the first capacitor, or capacitor C1 if you're looking or referencing the schematic, I'm going to put one end of my jumper wire in line with the negative terminal of that capacitor, and I'm going to place the other end of this jumper wire at the base of this opposite side transistor. So if you're referencing the provided schematic, I'm going from the negative leg or lead, or the cathode lead of capacitor C1 to the base of transistor Q2 as referenced in the provided schematic for the LED blinker circuit. I'm going to take another red jumper wire here, and I'm going to do to capacitor 2, or C2 as referenced on the schematic, the same as I did for capacitor C1. I'm going to take this jumper wire and place it in line with that capacitor C2 as referenced in the schematic. I'm going to place it in line with its cathode lead. I'm going to take the other end of this jumper wire and place it in line with the base of this transistor Q1 as referenced on the provided schematic for this LED blinker circuit. So if I show you a close-up here, we can see that I've taken one of these long red jumper wires. They're kind of too long, but that's what I have. I placed one end of that jumper wire in line with the cathode of this capacitor. This is capacitor C1 as referenced on the provided schematic. That is at column F, row 6 here. The other end of this same jumper wire goes in line with the base of this transistor, transistor Q2 as referenced on the schematic diagram at column D, row 15. And this other second jumper wire, one end is placed at column F, row 16, in line with the cathode of capacitor C2 here, and the other end is placed at the point column D, row 5, in line with the base of transistor Q1, as referenced from the schematic diagram provided. Now I just need to make the connections from the collectors to the capacitors, therefore closing the path that we need for our timing part of the circuit. I'm going to take one end of this orange jumper wire and place it in line with the positive lead of this capacitor C1. I have it at the point column J, row 5, and I'm going to take the other end of it and place it in line with the collector of transistor Q1. That is at point column E, row 6 on my breadboard. And I'm going to take this blue jumper wire here, and similarly I'm going to place one end of this jumper wire in line with the anode of capacitor C2 here. It's this capacitor here with its positive lead, or its anode, and I'm going to place the other end of this jumper wire in line with the collector of transistor Q2 as referenced on the schematic, and I've placed it at the point column E, row 16 on my breadboard here. So before I hook up the battery to my circuit and test this out, I'm just going to show you a closer look here as to how this circuit looks. It looks awful right now, but I'm using what I have to be able to accomplish what it is that we want to do, and that's to create this simple LED blinker circuit. So the next thing that we need to do is just hook up the power to our circuit here. So to do that, I'm going to take the positive lead of my 9-volt battery and place it into my positive power rail here. And then I'm going to place the negative lead of my 9-volt battery somewhere, it doesn't matter, on my negative rail. And you can see the circuit lights up, and we have a LED blinker circuit. So if you're curious about creating this circuit yourself and need more on the instructional content and how the circuit works, I encourage you to check out on how components work together in real circuits, where you can find more about this particular LED blinker circuit and more on components. So I highly suggest that you go check out that Circuit Component Super Series, where you can learn more about circuits and components. It's a 12-part super series. This is for part 3 of that series, and we'll eventually work our way to creating a robot and doing much more in that series. So I highly suggest that you go check that out. I appreciate you spending your time with me here. I hope that you were able to create this circuit. It's a lot of fun and it's really neat. And if you ask me, I think it looks like police car lights. So this was a really neat and fun circuit. I hope you try it. Again, thanks for joining us here at Motbots. Until next time, keep at it and stay motivated.